Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Sean.
And we watched a series.
Yeah, we're switching it up a little bit.
So, important details. It's called Dickinson. It's on Apple TV. And it is in its second season right now. So I thought we'll play catch up. We'll recap the first season in case you want to join us in watching. Because I think you might want to. And so far there are 4 episodes that have been released. But you're not as far behind as you think. The first 3 were released a week ago, early January. The second one, the 4th one was just released last Friday. So the new releases are coming on Fridays.
And you can catch up pretty quickly. These episodes are about a half hour long each.
And they're so bingeable.
They definitely are.
So if you are like me, you watched Bridgerton, you loved Bridgerton, and you're thinking, what now? Where do I put all my feelings? I'm just loving period dramas that are saucy and sassy. Guess what, guys?
What?
Dickinson did it first, and I don't want to say it did it better. It did it better. It did it. It's like Bridgerton with brains. That's right. She said it. Ooh.
It's if Bridgerton was a poet.
Sure. So, in fact, Dickinson is a poet. We're talking about, of course, famed American poet Emily Dickinson. So this is
a mysterious figure.
A pretty mysterious figure because she was hardly published at all when she was alive. So we didn't know she was a super brilliant person until after she was dead, and then it was too late to ask her about her life. So we don't know much about her actual life. And so Apple TV has done us a solid and dramatized it and made it, I'm sure, probably far, far better than it actually was. And so also far more entertaining and watchable. Thank you, Apple TV. It's so nice to loosen the stays of the corset and let us not be constrained by history. History, we've been there, done that. It wasn't that entertaining the first time. So,
Let's jazz it up a little bit.
Why not zhuzh it up? Make it a little more spectacular, right?
Sure. So,
it's a loose retelling of Emily Dickinson's life. It was pretty loose, let me tell you. The wonderful Hailee Steinfeld stars as Emily Dickinson. So the first season aired in 2019. There was a 1-year hiatus. It is back in season 2, which is dropping every Friday right now, January, February. So tune in. It is a lot of fun. If you like Bridgerton, you probably will like this one as well. It has some of the same themes, of course, but it also inflames you with poetry. It's kind of wonderful. So they dig a little deeper into the imagery, into all of this stuff, like the origin stories of her poems. Not the real ones, but who needs the real ones? In reality, she was probably just a sad recluse, but this makes it a little more exciting. And it is. It's lush. It's wonderful. I mean, the costumes are exciting. But like Bridgerton, it's not going to be 100% historically accurate. The dialogue is saucy. It's fun. It's on fire. There's pop music in this. There's, feminism. All of the female characters are having an awakening because Emily has set them on fire. So yeah, things are getting shaken up in their little Massachusetts, is it? Town?
Ish, yeah.
New England-ish,
yeah.
I guess. Little Women-ish, if you will. That's going to come up. So anyways, a quick recap of season 1. So the main players that you need to know are Emily, the poet, the star, played by Hailee Steinfeld, who is wonderful. Then we have Lavinia, her sister, also a teenager. Anna Baryshnikov plays her. Austin is their brother, played by Adrian Enscoe. So these are all I said teenager, but we'll call them young 20s, teenage to young.
Yeah.
And then their parents. So Dad Edward is played by Toby Huss, and the mom is played by Krakowski, which I love seeing her no matter what. This is such a fun role. She's the opposite of, Glamour Puss that she played in so many other series. Yeah, fun to see her in this. And then there is Sue. So Sue, up until very recently, has been Emily's best friend. Ella Hunt plays Sue. Not just best friend and lover, secret lover. Best friends with benefits.
Yep.
And now Sue is also betrothed to Austin, Emily's brother.
It's awkward.
So Sue, poor Sue, is all alone in the world. She has watched all of her family members die of various 1800s diseases. As
There's
they
a
did.
long list of them, yeah.
And sometimes just like cold.
Yeah.
Not even having a cold, but just it being cold and drafty in your house. You died. Yeah, I mean, everybody died. So she is the only one left standing. She has been poor because, all her family keeps dying, leaving behind medical bills, I'm sure. So, she might like to have a life with Emily, but that obviously needs to be on the down low. Practically speaking, she's getting with the brother.
Bet, yeah.
So, yes, we know the real Emily Dickinson, like Sean was saying, we don't know a lot about her life. She was only published a handful of times when she was alive, usually under pseudonyms. It was her sister Lavinia who found like a cache of hundreds or thousands of poems after she was dead. They were all over the house. The girl wrote prolifically. So lots of little things in the series are inspired by real life events, but you have to know about the real events to spot them because there are lots of liberties being taken. So Emily has some friends. I don't know if I should call them frenemies, but she's got some friends, Abby and Abaya, who are played by Sophie Zucker and Allegra Hart. So Abby and Abaya are actual real names taken from her real friend circle, the real Emily Dickinson's real friend circle. In the movie, in the series, they're almost a little mean girlish. They're a little, also joined by Kevin Yee, who plays Toshiaki. So that threesome is like the friend circle, or the frenemy circle, or however you want to go with it. They are invited a lot of the time. So.
They are. There's not many other people in this little town.
True.
So
there is a dearth of,
If you want to have a social event, you're going to have to invite these people.
That's right. But they are also in her literary club.
Well, that's true. Yeah. They're putting on plays and stuff like
they
that.
do dramatic readings of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In costumes.
Yeah.
But even Austin is in that club, and I have to say, Austin is not the brightest bulb.
He's not.
Sorry, Austin.
He's really not.
He's not. So, like any teenager or young woman, Emily is embarrassed by her parents, who, in the first season...
To be honest, they're kind of embarrassed.
Well, sure, okay, fine. In the first season, the mother is very concerned with marrying her off, finding her suitors, and suitors do appear, like her friend George. George, played by Samuel Farnsworth, who she really rebuffs and tries to do it nicely, but she just friend zones him, thanks but no thanks, George. But he is hanging on to this little unrequited love thing that he's got. He's got it pretty bad for Emily, I think. So that's kind of first season stuff, where she's not reclusive. She's not the recluse that we know from history. She does
social.
Leave the house. She does have friends. She does love to just be in her room reading and writing, of course. That is her first love. She doesn't have time for men because she loves writing. That is her love. And it is set, as it should be for her time period, in 1800s, but we're not exactly tied to everything being super accurate. So she is painted as a very rebellious character, a feminist character. As a whole, the series, they're more likely to be twerking than waltzing, let's just say. We've heard some Billie Eilish, we've heard some Lizzo. It's that kind of thing. So I really find it a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, there's going to be cross-dressing, there's going to be revenge porn, like all of these things that you might... Well, remember Lavinia slipped somebody a nude portrait of herself that she drew of herself in the nude, and he showed it to people.
He did.
And everyone was talking.
Scandalous, yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy. And I like the little black book that somebody's showing, and it's just like locks of hair of all his conquests.
That's
like
right.
They really reference modern day a lot by trying to show us what it might have been like back then, which is ridiculous and wonderful. So we know that Emily is not interested in getting married. She's not, I mean, she doesn't even like doing chores at her parents' house. She's definitely anti-chores. She just wants to write all the time. And she is obsessed with death. In fact, describes death as sexy as hell. And let me tell you, death does show up. Death does show up. Number one, she dresses for death. When she has a date with death, she's got this gorgeous red gown, which, whew, beautiful. But death is played by Wiz Khalifa. So it is a little bit sexy. It's dangerous, it's exciting. It's probably the most exciting thing that happens in her life is when death comes to stop. And it's just fun how we see like these probably didn't happen to the real Emily, I'm gonna say. But we see like how these ideas would get into somebody's head and how they became poems.
Yep.
So I love
seeing
seeing
that.
that.
It takes inspiration from those and will give you the lines, and then you can see how they're choosing to portray it as
Yes.
source of inspiration.
Mm-hmm. So she's got, I think, a life that is probably freer than most. Her family was well-to-do, and yet she's feeling pretty repressed. Her father lets her get away with a lot of things that nobody else would have gotten away with, and yet she still feels completely stifled by him. Because he doesn't think it's appropriate for a woman to have, he thinks it's scandalous for a woman to have literary ambitions. Can't even be published in a local newspaper. That's ridiculous. He doesn't think that women have a place in well, they can be educated, but not the same education as men. They have
female education.
Yes. Not a lot of reading, no politics. He doesn't want them swimming. He doesn't want them going to the circus. Like, he's got some really,
he's pretty rigid.
He is. So, and he does give permission for men to marry his daughter. Again, when no man has asked his daughter. When will fathers learn? Oh, gosh.
One of these days.
One of these days, yeah. Then, of course, there's the Civil War looming over all of this. So we get little glimpses of how, you know, even up north, things were a little bit dicey. There are some black characters walking around Emily's world, not a lot of them. And she's not handling it all totally perfectly, although she's a little more advanced than her father is, of course, who is not nearly as advanced as we would hope he would be. And then one day, because you knew it had to happen, a sexy lawyer catches her eye, named Ben, played by Matt Laureat. They always do, eh, Sean? And suddenly, all of her reservations about love and marriage and all of these other things, she's just in love, guys. And suddenly she can picture all of these things. Maybe they won't be so terrible with Ben, because he gets her. She feels like he hears her and understands her, and when she says a word, he knows its true meaning. And she has not felt that way about any man ever. Perhaps has only ever felt that way about Sue. So of course he dies.
They all die.
You know, they have a steamy little courtship, and then he dies because he got a cough. It wasn't COVID.
No.
But he died.
Might as well have been.
It may as well have been, yes. So, you know, don't get attached to anyone, because it is the 1800s and anyone can die at any moment. However, don't worry. We will get a wedding in season 1, because of course Austin and Sue need to get down the aisle, because Sue might be pregnant, guys.
She might be.
and it's not Emily's baby. And Emily, of course, is super jealous of Austin. Austin finally, the poor dim-witted guy, finally realizes that his fiancée and his sister are doing it. Because he walks in on them in bed a lot before he realizes what's happening.
Yes,
he doesn't get it. Poor guy. And I love that they have like these historical cameos that pop up, like what's his face? John Mulaney popped up as Thoreau, and Zosia Mamet popped up as Louisa May Alcott, who everybody was so scandalized by the fact that she admitted that she wrote for money. Yeah. And she was trying to like plug soap into the stories, so she was like an influencer of her time, really. It was pretty great. But yeah, so that's season 1 in a nutshell. Sue and Emily are, you know, flames. They're the real couple, but Sue had to marry Austin, you know, just to get in the family.
But it's okay, because they're just going to live right next door to each other.
They sure are, yeah. They're going to be neighbors. And then Emily met Ben, but Ben died. So sad.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's basically season 1 in a nutshell.
Pretty much
would you
caught
say?
up.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are in season 2. We got episode 1, Before I Got My Eye Put Out. So we learned that Emily is having some eye problems, maybe going blind. The ophthalmologist, who apparently cost as much as a trip to Europe, tells her she needs to stop writing so much.
And her dad's on board.
Well, of course he is. He never supported this to begin with. He's on board with anything that comes out like this, but he would have preferred not to spend all that money, to be told that. So, you know, she's kind of now writing under extreme pressure, feeling like if she's going to go blind, she better write as much as she can right now.
But that's just going to make her go blinder.
Sean, priorities, okay?
Okay.
Sue has lost the baby, but she has gained money. And she seems to be, I don't know if she's processed any grief whatsoever, but she's definitely feeling something because she's pulled away from Emily this season quite a lot. We don't see them together as much. Although Emily took a while to realize this, because she was sending over baskets and baskets of poems without hearing anything back. But Sue was so busy spending money, hosting lavish parties. She has taken to this wealthy lifestyle quite
She
well.
has. She's good at it.
She's so good at it. You know, horses, crystal, gowns from Vienna. Oh my goodness. And of course, all of the mean girls are super jealous. But yeah, she's throwing all these salons to have all the big intellectuals of whatever small town it is. Again, Amherst, I think, come visit them. And one such visitor is Sam, a newspaper publisher, played by Finn Jones. And so she really wants to introduce him to Emily, ostensibly because he could publish her poems. But remember that Ben is dead, so there's an opening. Meanwhile, actually, like, they're bleeding the parents dry. And Austin, again, is so dumb, even when his dad pulls him aside to show him the family finances, and because they're lawyers together in the same practice. Dumb lawyer, Sean. But they're so, like, he still doesn't get it, and he can't say no to his wife, who continues to spend like crazy. So the parents now are going to take in boarders. So the first boarder is a guy named Henry, and he and Lavinia used to hook up. Of course, the parents do not know that they have this history. But anyways, he thinks Lavinia is this extremely good girl, just like her mother, very good in the kitchen, good little knitter. And so he's really kind of come back to propose to her. Unbeknownst to him, Lavinia has been also finding feminism. She's taking after her sister. She's really changing under Emily's influence. So Lavinia is not that same sweet little girl anymore. She's become a little more worldly, eh, Sean?
That's right. That's what we call her.
Yes. So he doesn't really know what he's got in store for him, but Lavinia is enjoying having a boy in the house, let's just say.
She is, yes.
Wink,
it's
wink.
very convenient.
It is. And he's scandalized, although I don't see him saying no to all the blowjobs.
He'll deal with it.
He's dealing with it, but shocked by it. Constant, and berates her, like, this is bad, we shouldn't be doing this. Doesn't stop doing it.
Just gets his objection on the record.
Yes. And he's telling people they're betrothed to be betrothed. And she's like, no. Like, she's questioning whether she ever wants to get married, too. I mean, she's been burned. She's learning, like her sister, maybe there are better things. But this guy wants to pin her down. So his name is Henry, but in the olden days, everybody was named William, John, or Henry. So let's call him Ship. Okay, he goes by Ship because there's more than one Henry in the show already. Played by Pico Alexander. So he's the new guy on the show. So is Sam, of course, played by Finn Jones. 2 new guys for the 2 sisters. Ooh, it's going to be a saucy season for the Dickinsons. So, okay. Episode 2. Fame is a fickle food. This one was a bit of a surprise to me because in this one, Emily gets obsessed with this bake-off. This big cake bake-off.
Cake contest.
Yeah, which seems weird because
the winner gets in the newspaper.
Right. But the weird thing to me is that suddenly Emily likes baking and is very good at baking because she has spurned the culinary art, not just the domestic arts.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that everyone was going to die after eating her cake, to be honest.
Yes. Well, first of all, they couldn't because she soaked it in brandy for a month. So no matter what, there's nothing in there that could kill anyone because the brandy has killed everything. But of course she wins. But I just found it out of character for this character. Even though Emily Dickinson in real life was apparently known to be a very good baker. But it seemed weird when she had to be taught how to bake bread in the previous season that suddenly she's this cake maven. But anyways, that was a big obsession for that episode.
For that one episode.
For that one episode. Possibly just to see the very, like, visceral... Sam, let's just say, Sam eats cake in a way that made me, a married woman, blush. Okay? Woo! Okay. Put that cake down, sir. Of course, it does come up that last year's Bake Off winner has committed suicide because the fame went to her head. Again, as Sean said, your name gets published in the paper. That is the fame that was too much for her. Big time winner. And yeah, now she's gone. So what's it going to do to Emily? We don't know. Also, I said last episode they took in the boarder. What was his name? Oh, Henry Ship. They're taking on more boarders this episode. Not quite boarders. Their uncle something, some such name. What was his name? Mortimer? No, it probably wasn't Mortimer. Uncle Martin, I think, died. But he had 2 young daughters. And so now they've brought the daughters and their inheritance into the family home. Of course, the dad has done this without consulting the mom. He just arrives with these 2 little holy terrors. And Jane Krakowski, who I'll just call Jane Krakowski because her name is also Emily. Oh my gosh. Think of new names, people.
Yeah, short list of names.
Yeah. And she's just like, oh, great. I'm so happy you didn't even ask me if I wanted 2 more children.
She didn't.
She did not. Well, in fairness, it's possible Martin died just to get away from his kids. They're pretty terrible.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. But they come with a hefty inheritance, so...
And they need money.
They do need money, because Austin and Sue are still spending a heck of a lot of it. Meanwhile, nobody is stalking Emily. And nobody is a physical person. And taken from a very famous piece of poetry of Emily Dickinson's. I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? So nobody started stalking her last episode. In the first episode, I think, he shows up on the train.
Doctors, yeah.
Comes back this one, and tells her, do not seek fame. too late for the baking contest. But
That's right.
maybe she shouldn't have her poems published with Sam? Is that what nobody is telling her?
Yes,
I
probably.
mean, it's confusing. For her and for us. Episode 3. The only ghost I ever saw. So, with all the stuff in the air, what did the ladies do? They throw a seance because they need some guidance, obviously. The mean girls are invited. I think even the new, the Holy Terror twins are invited.
They need people.
Well, sure. You need just some warm bodies for a seance,
people
right?
All around the table so you can hold hands.
Exactly. And some stuff does happen.
It does.
They summon something.
Yeah, they do.
And I feel like we didn't get into that enough.
Well, it's a mystery. It's a mystery.
It is a mystery, and also it scared everybody so much they just shut the seance down, basically. But nobody is still there, and in fact, she kind of witnesses nobody get shot and killed. Who is this nobody? Because she seems to almost recognize him from something, right? But we don't know. She doesn't know what. It's still nobody. But I think, and this nobody is played by Will Pullen, I should say. But I think that witnessing nobody's death makes her so terrified of dying anonymously that then she does consent to have her poetry published. So he's having an adverse effect on her, really. Last episode he told her, do not seek fame, but his death in this episode made her feel like she didn't want to die without anyone knowing hers, or die being known for baking and not writing. That's also
a bit of both.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jane Krakowski is having these weird sailor fantasies.
Oh, yeah. Burly man was lost at sea. Mm-hmm. And she's really feeling a connection.
Yeah. The Captain Lee, stud of the seas of that time. I don't think he's quite that old. Are we the only ones watching, what's it called?
Below Deck.
Below Deck. And we're watching it against our will. I just want to lodge that little piece of information firmly in your minds. My sisters forced us. Whew.
It's something.
It's something.
And there's coronavirus in it. In the most recent season.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is about Dickinson.
Yeah, no coronavirus, but there
every
is a captain.
Other virus.
Yes.
Every other plague.
Yeah, they're all.
Everyone is dying. Yeah. Including, they think, at various times, Emily, but she just likes to play sick.
So she can write.
So she can write in her room all day. Okay, so finally, let's get to episode 4, the most recent episode. The Daisy Follows Soft the Sun. So remember that in a fit of, fear of anonymity or whatever, she'd given her poetry to Sam to publish. But doing that, it seems, has robbed her of her agency, has disturbed her creative impulses. She's got writer's block. She's so jammed up, fearing what does he think? Does he like them? Will the public like them? That she can't write anything else.
She doesn't like this feeling.
No.
It's very new to her.
Yeah.
She doesn't usually care what other people think.
That's right. So, she's going out for a walk to try to loosen up the gears. And she bumps into one of these historical cameos that I love so much. This one is a little more out of left field, I thought.
Yeah.
Frederick Law Olmsted. So I know who this guy is because I read his biography. I don't know if everyone knows that name, but I don't want to call him a gardener. He's like a gardener architect. He's actually
He's a landscaper.
Okay, thank you. That's a word. Okay.
Yeah, he designs parks such as Central
Park. That's
and not
right.
just, but
no.
Obviously that's
he was
the big
in
one.
Amherst to do one of their things, but that's what you'll know him from. His claim to fame. So this guy played by Timothy Simons. So she meets him and, he's kind of a nutter. At least that's how the show is portraying him. I don't want to
they do that for almost everyone in one way or another. They're all quirky.
They're quirky. This guy was a little...
He's a He's at level up.
degree or two away from quirky. But anyways, I don't know that this is anything real to his life, but he was a little eccentric.
I feel like probably some truth to it.
Okay, which one of us read his biography?
Well,
Well,
you did.
why are you just guessing then?
Because it felt real.
Oh, okay.
If a
great.
guy is going to design a park, I think he would be obsessed about whether the rose bush is interfering with your reading. Seems to be an important part of the landscape architecture.
Okay, thank you for your input, Sean.
You're welcome.
Anyways, she meets him and they wander around together in this maze, a hedge maze that has suddenly popped up in her town. I don't know.
It's huge.
It is huge.
It's bigger than The Shining, I think.
Yes. Anyways, he does kind of give her lots of good advice, I have to say. He basically tells her that writing is a gift and you do it because you love it, not because of the audience or what they might think. And she is heartened by this, and I think almost everything starts to flow again, except for then she gets lost in the hedge maze. And she's physically lost, but that manifests mentally as well. And so all of the good that this guy, Olmsted, was doing kind of gets undone because the fear just escalates. And here's the thing, because at one point, while she's wandering, they pull away, the camera pulls up, and you see the maze from way high up, so that's how we know how huge it is. And she's the only one in it. So where did this Olmsted go, and did she just make him up? I think he can't be entirely made up, he can't be entirely imaginary, because I'm pretty sure she introduced her dad to him?
Yeah, that's right. There were other characters interacting with him at the start.
Yes, so... But I
She's
don't know.
imagined some of this, apparently.
Because
I mean, not
he's
the
not
least
in
of
the
which
maze.
is the maze. I mean, this is not actually in this town, as far as we've known until now. And if they have such a great hedge maze, they probably don't need anything else in their park. That's the centerpiece.
Plus, if it's the one entertaining thing in their town, she probably would know it by heart. But
Yeah.
anyways, long story short, she eventually bumps into Sam. Sam the publisher, Sam the poem guy. And he saves her. Which, I mean, that's how she interprets it. Because she was so scared, and there is Sam. I mean, she was gonna find her way out anyways. And it seems like she was practically out either way when she meets Sam, and yet she attributes her saving to him. And this kind of reinforces, though, his power over her, his protection and his praise, like everything matters to her. And we've not seen this from her before, obviously, as Sean said. She's never cared about what people think. She writes mostly for herself and for Sue. Certainly for Sue is the only audience we've ever seen matter to her. Doesn't even show her stuff to her family. So for this guy to be so important is really rattling her, and kind of us, because it's changing who she is. Anyways, so it's kind of bad news that he's the one she runs into, because it does reinforce that dynamic. Meanwhile at home, Lavinia and Ship are having fun. And not just after dark. Oh, the fun could be all day long. And Ship tells her he's feeling a little bit used. You know, when women just want him for this one thing. So what does he do? He arranges to have her kidnapped and forces a proposal on her.
It's
prank
romantic.
Proposal, yes. Yeah. Well, he does it in front of a lot of people because she can't say no if there's a lot of witnesses.
That's the theory.
Oh boy, I'm not a big fan. Well, of course I would never be a fan of a prank proposal where I pretended to kidnap you and she thinks she's actually being kidnapped.
She does. It puts a bag over her head and everything.
Yeah. Yes. And when he's like joshingly said they're betrothed to be betrothed, she's always like been like, no. She's really not giving him any indication that she wants this, which is why he does it in front of her family and friends and everyone they know, and defaces property, as she points out. Yeah. So that's what Lavinia's going through. So from season 1, where she was, sometimes knitting the whole episode, to now, she has made some big changes to her character. She's really grown in independence. Well, let's not step on her sister's toes, Sean. She should get her own hobbies.
She could be back.
She has a cat. Remember, she embroidered the cat pillow?
Yeah.
Long live the cat pillow.
Yeah.
But anyways, she's really into the cat. Meanwhile, you know what the little cousins are really into?
Digging holes.
That's right. So clueless dad stumbles into it.
Bird watching.
Thank you. That's true. It is a really big hole. It is like 12 feet deep.
Yeah.
And quite big around.
Yeah.
So how did 2 little girls dig that size of a hole with nobody noticing? And where did all the dirt from it go? Like, how did they move all that dirt? They're little girls. How were they getting in and out of the hole?
Mm-hmm. All good questions.
I mean, I already suspected they were psychopaths. Now I wonder if they're like super psychopaths. We need to, we'll think about this later. For right now, the dad is stuck in a hole. I don't know how long he's stuck in there. Finally, his wife finds him. But instead of saving him, she gets in the hole with him. Because she has been having some needs that have not been met. Because remember the cake episode? It turns out that Mr. and Mrs. Dickinson have sex once a year like clockwork on Cake Bake-Off Day.
Which is also a cattle sale day.
Sure. And she had a bath the week before for it and everything. So,
She was ready.
It was legit, but it didn't happen this year. And so she has been not super happy ever since. You'll remember the captain fantasies. Yeah. She was getting a little intimate with a bedpost and a very pixelated newspaper picture of the missing guy. That's what you had to deal with back then. But yeah, that's, So she gets in the hole and starts telling her husband about her needs and how they have not been met. So again, from this woman who is mad that her husband got them a maid in season 1 because, that threatened her identity because that's all she has are the domestic arts. That's the only thing that she's in charge of is the house. And now somebody else is doing her work. To here she is finally feeling, and she's nowhere near where her daughters are at, but she feels like she's allowed to have an opinion and to express it, so that's a big deal. Also a big deal, when they work together to get her out of the hole, she doesn't help him out, she leaves him there. I cheered. Good for you, lady. Why don't we all have holes in our backyard? I think we need a husband hole where you could just go sit and think about what you did. You know what you did, go think about it. Think on it until you're good and sorry. And until I've had a bottle or 2 of wine. Whichever happens first.
Well, that hole would be hard to get out of.
Not my problem. Anyways, taking a page from his dad's book, Austin thinks he can solve some problems by taking those Holy Terror twins and bringing them over to his house so he can adopt them. Because he really wants to be a dad. What's her face? Sue. Sue has not been really receptive to his
hints.
No,
they're not really hints either.
No, he wants to be, expects to be a dad, as still to this day, that's what people get married and do. So he did, although he does not know that Sue has miscarried. She was pregnant and miscarried, but never told him about it. In fact, Emily is the only one who knows about it. And we still haven't really seen her process the grief. We just see maybe some consequences of it. Is she happy to be sprung with 2 children?
Well, why wouldn't she?
It didn't go well with his mother, and yet somehow he thinks it's going to be Why do these Dickinson men never run anything by their wives? It's going to be a problem, guys. I don't know how Austin didn't end up in the hole, to be honest.
I don't think Sue knew about the hole yet.
Okay, so episode 5 predictions. Number 1, Austin in a hole. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
I am loving this show, guys.
It's good.
Yeah.
Apple TV is some pretty solid stuff, really.
Yes.
They don't have a ton of stuff, but almost everything on there is pretty good.
Is pretty high quality stuff, yeah. So, do you have Apple TV? Are you addicted to Dickinson? Did you watch Bridgerton? Because I do think that this is a good recommendation. It's quite different in tone, but I think it has a lot of the same elements that people loved. I think that you could definitely make that leap.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone that liked Bridgerton, I think, will find something in this show that's sort of similar. It's not the same, because it's less of a romance and more of just a story about a crazy family.
That's all life is anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody has a crazy family. It's the one thing we all have in common. Some more than others. Okay, well, we are hotly anticipating episode 5, starting with Austin in a hole. Let us know what your predictions are, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!